Right, hello everyone. Welcome to another lecture for ways of seeing art, digital media, and visual culture. And today we'll be talking about cultural knowledge. So, one of the main photos that I've had on my course cover slide is Haida Totems and Queen Charlotte Islands by Emily Carr in 1912. So, people who are not familiar with Emily Carr is a well known Canadian artist who is known to depict landscapes of Canada and specifically Indigenous cultures around Canada. So, this will definitely be part of a conversation about cultural knowledge. Now, art in Canada has been marked by thousands of years of habitation by indigenous peoples, followed by waves of immigration, included artists from European origin, and then subsequently artists with heritage from literally almost every country all around the globe. So, art in Canada is into sort of uh, is marked by these three movements. The original movement is definitely the indigenous culture of the country. Second is the wave of immigration from Europe, the European colonial settlement. And the third, which is more recent and which is shaping the contemporary landscape of Canada and North America, is immigration from all over the world. Now, this specific painting is one of the most popular paintings across Canada, as I just mentioned, Haida Totem at Queen Charlotte Island by Emily Carr in 1912. Now, I want to just, again, I'm not an expert on any indigenous culture and indigenous art. All right, sorry, indigenous art, but uh, I want to just quickly talk about a lot of like West Coast art culture and tradition that's very common around Vancouver Island, and British Columbia is woodland art, which is a form of West Coast indigenous art, part of the Inuit art traditions. There are three recognized schools, as I just mentioned: Inuit art, woodland art, and West Coast art. As you can see through these quick diagrams, or not diagrams, these three visuals. These are some of the visuals that are uh, sort of very common to the eyes of people who are living around Vancouver and Metro Vancouver. So these are some of the designs that you might see around the airport, Vancouver airport, around a lot of government and public buildings. So yeah, this is very native to West Coast. Now, I want to definitely talk about and expand on a conversation about the third space theory. So, for third space theory, in one of our last lecture series, we had this conversation where we talked about artists such as M.F. Hussain, where their art was informed by their own original culture, but then also through the intersection of other cultures. So, using that sort of framework, I want to have this conversation about how Canadian sort of cultural landscape can also, at least today, can also be seen as being uh, germinating or growing or evolving through discourses in this middle section, the intersection of native, ethnic, and religious and regional knowledge that is very native to Canada and North America, to the now sort of more mainstream colonized knowledge, and now also more global market influences with through immigration, and because of the internet we are sort of like interconnected. So the Canadian culture is a third space with the intersection of its indigenous knowledge, European settlement, and also waves of immigration in the country. Now, I want to do a quick case study. So, the first case study I want to do is Norval Morisu. I hope I am pronouncing their last name right. If not, sorry about that. So, Norval Morisu is often considered the grandfather of contemporary Indigenous art in Canada. He is also known as the Picasso of the North. Now, the question that arises is, why is Norval Morisu's third space so powerful? Like, a lot of his artwork sort of germinates within this third space. So the question is, why is this intersection so powerful for Norval Morisu? So, looking at one of his paintings, as you can see, it definitely uses what we just discussed, indigenous visual ideas and methodologies. But these are three keywords that I am using is symbolism, number one. Number two, prehistoric traditions and cultural knowledge, which are preserved within a lot of indigenous art, and specifically in Norul Morisu's work. And then humans' relationship with their environment. So that's a very key component of a lot of indigenous cultural art. So this is a very powerful video, and this video is curated. Sorry, this video is a documentation of an exhibition curated by Felicia Gay. So this celebrates the work of Norul Marisu, and for this lecture, I want all of us to watch this video, and there will be a discussion related to this video. All right, moving on. Now, so after I'm going to assume that people got a chance to look at the video that I suggested in this lecture series, sorry, in this lecture video. So, just sort of like decoding some of the keywords that jump out to me when you think about ways of seeing through Noral Marisu is one, relationality. How do we relate to their work, and how different depictions and symbols are relating to each other. So that's relationality. And also relationality is also how an audience relate to the work that they're seeing. So it is definitely an abstract concept. Traditions, Norman Marisu definitely preserve some of the traditions that have been passed down to him through his grandparents and parents. And then the spiritual element of a connection with nature, trauma informed, the trauma uh, of this colonial idea of stripping away from indigenous cultures. There is that trauma that informs someone's work, very sort of very prominent to a lot of indigenous artists and cultures across Canada. Very community based, sort of preserving the heritage and also helping other community member to sort of take ownership of the work that they are presenting. And religion. So when I say religion, I'm talking about how different ideas, traditions which are passed down have been sort of coded and woven within the work that novel Morisu is presenting. All right, now moving our discussion from novel Morisu, I want to introduce this term. Now, this term is known as Orientalism. So, in art history, literature, and cultural studies, Orientalism is seen as not seen is sort of this broad idea that imitation or depiction of aspects of the Eastern world, or which here known as Orient, by writers, designers, and artists from the Western world. So, the idea is that when Western writers, like anyone who is working within the framework of the West, or maybe have a Western approach. So when I say the West, it mostly Anglophone, English-speaking world, and also Europe, and their depiction of the Eastern world, that's Asia, the Middle East, and different parts. Orientalism can also, at least in my understanding, could also be a framework how a lot of European colonialists interacted with indigenous culture, but Orientalism is mostly focused on the depiction of the Eastern world by the Western world. So this image, why I've chosen this image is because this is, again, I'm not saying that this is untrue or true, but what happened is that this became this just idea of the Eastern world by the Western writers. It has some intrigue. It has definitely that, oh, Eastern world is considered as this world which is completely different from the West, and this sort of helped create this propaganda of othering. But sometimes a lot of writers, they just were curious souls. So very controversial topic, I'm not gonna lie. All right, so this is a hot button topic and something I'll put on discussion forums. So okay, Stephen McCurry, he is considered one of the most prolific photographers of our I believe, yeah, of our time, of 21st century. So he took this photo of this girl in Afghanistan during a war-torn Afghanistan and during conflict, and this was the cover of National Geographic. Now, this divided a lot of people. A lot of people considered this as this sort of Orientalism where this Western photographer is just sort of like exoticizing uh, uh, someone from the East, who is a refugee, who's wanton, so who is actually living in a very in an Afghanistan at that time that was war torn, but then others are saying that it's just a cover of a person in Afghanistan, and as a photographer they have all the right to creatively enhance, not even enhance, just able to frame them in a light that they consider. So to be honest, I don't have a right answer because I kind of see both these points that all right, there is this Orientalism and depiction of the exotic other, but then there is also just a photographer who found some a person uh, where they were sort of in sort of just like they just found out this is a great photo. I just love my composition. I loved how the way this person is gazing in the camera. So I definitely get that perspective too. So that's why it's a hot button topic. So what is considered Orientalism and what's not? If you have examples for both for and against, that'll be great. Again, let's try to have this conversation civil without uh, uh, without trying to politicize this because I feel I'm not looking for debates. I'm just looking for honest discussions because this is reality. This is the world that we live in. And to have these conversations is important, but also be very mindful that we don't need to debate. If we have a good example of what is considered as Orientalism and what's not, let's do that. Because for me, Orientalism is basically when you look at so for example, sometimes in the 80s when they were making Hollywood movies where they were depicting Middle East and India and China, it was just through one-dimensional characterism, right? Sorry, characteristics. So that was stereotypes. That is definitely Orientalism, right? And I feel in today's movie there is more accountability. So I feel that's great. But sometimes there is this idea that hey, I love this culture. I'm an artist. I want to go to that country, just immerse myself, learn how to create that art, and I want to appreciate that. But that's not Orientalism. That's appreciation. So there is definitely that sort of fine line. Anyhow, moving on. Now, the second case study is Emily Carr. Now, Emily Carr is very important if you are an artist working in Canada because she is one of the most prolific Canadian artists. And uh, she was an artist who was inspired by the monumental art and villages of the First Nations and landscape of British Columbia. So, very popular artist in British Columbia, especially. And now, Canadian Encyclopedia describes her as a Canadian icon. She has been also designated a National Historic Person. So, very prominent in Canada. Great video, but definitely will part be of our discussion today. So this is a video where the curator talks about Emily Carr's artistic celebration of the First Nations and the iconic painting we just saw at the start of this lecture today. So after you got a chance to look at this video, definitely pause this video, go have a look at this video in the course slide, and then come back here if you want. So the keywords are sort of sorry, excuse me. So the keywords that sort of jumps out when we talk about ways of seeing through Emily Carr is she is able to capture the spirit of the villages and the monuments that she's trying to depict, not ethnographic. So when I say not ethnographic, it means that the idea was to appreciate, uh, imbibe and embody, not embodies necessarily, imbibe and be really present in the moment when you are actually approaching a culture that's not yours. Ethnographic is more cold, calculative, and dissecting without prior knowledge, so not ethnographic. And it's for an experience over plain observation. So Emily Carr was experiencing the marvel and the beauty of the First Nation village and landscape of British Columbia and a lot of indigenous culture that was very evident in her painting. Now, Emily Carr was really conscious that a white woman tinkering with native culture was open to accusations of exploitation, and even at that time, there was the case that she was conscious. But I feel Emily Carr's legacy is still strong because the way she approached a culture other than hers, the native indigenous culture, was through, as I mentioned, through experience by capturing the spirit and not ethnographically. That's why Emily Carr's legacy is still celebrated. Now, since today's discussion is about cultural knowledge, another term and another discussion point that I feel is very relevant to our discussion here is appropriation. Now, appropriation is a very interesting term. I'm not talking about cultural appropriation. Here, this appropriation is actually not necessarily that bad. So, appropriation is an artistic practice that involves borrowing, copying, and altering existing images or objects to create new word. So appropriation is like sampling, it's like appreciation. So let me give you one example. uh, Sampling is a term that's very popular in the music industry. So it's like, for example, you have this really popular song from the 80s, right? From the 80s or 90s, that was like a huge hit. And maybe it's a Michael Jackson song, it's a Madonna song. In the 80s and the 90s, it's a Beatles song from the 60s. And let's say in 2025, there is this DJ or there is this music producer who loves these records. So what they will do is they will use that existing music or a song or a hook from that and sort of mix it in their own way. So they're sampling it. They're not just copying it, but they're sampling it. They are sort of also giving homage to the. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But they are sort of like adding more texture and layers and beats to it, and then some people might rap over it. It's very popular in hip hop. So some people will rap on older sample songs, and then a lot of just musicians, they would sort of just add their own originality to it. So this is known as sampling. It's sort of an appreciation of a song that was made in the past. Now in art, this is known as appropriation. Great video by Tomokazu Matsuyama. He talks about how he appropriates images to create fine art. Part of a discussion thread. Please do go have a look and watch this video. So the question is for the discussion thread is how Tomokazu Matsuyama appropriates images to create fine arts. And as definitely I'll give you a chance to look at the video and respond to this question. You can come back, pause this video, go look at this video and come back. So the ways of seeing through Tomokazu Matsuyama, as again this person is also one of our case studies, is that he's able to talk about cultural mashups, that how he is able to sort of find these symbols across different cultures around that he sort of gravitates toward and he mashes them up. He definitely pays respect to the sources he is using, and he is definitely thinking about the concepts of the current times, that how he is using all these sources by creating a concept of the times that he is living in. So Matsuyama makes this distinction between copying and the idea of sampling, which is core in appropriation in fine art. So for example, if you found an image that's interesting, if you just copy and paste it, that's not appropriation, that's not sampling, that's plagiarism. But if you use a part of someone's work and you collage that into your body of work and also are able to give credit to the original source, that's sampling, that's appropriation. You're actually paying respect to your sources. All right. This is such a funny video. I don't know. I just put it there. There was this show, Kim's Convenience. I think it's like one of the rare Canadian original shows made in Toronto. So they talk about cultural appropriation. Not really related to our discussion here, but I just feel that in my in-person classes I always quickly show this clip. So yeah, it's quite funny. Alright, guys, so one of the class exercises we'll be doing today is to make three Pinterest boards. So you have to make three different Pinterest boards. The first Pinterest board is to be inspired by Norval Morrisseau. So the first thing to go on Pinterest, create a board, title it Inspired by Morrisseau. So this board, I want you to find art that has emphasis on symbolism, spiritual connection, and cultural knowledge. So it could be whatever spiritual symbols or cultural ideas that make sense to you that you can find over Pinterest. Excuse me. And the second Pinterest board that I wanted to create is should be inspired by Emily Carr. So the idea is that art with the idea of cultural appreciation and understanding. So for this specific board, how can you find ideas and art from a different culture that you appreciate, that you sort of have some understanding or want to understand. So for me, I would love to go visit Japan. I would love to go visit Paris. So that's some of the cultures or some of the places I want to visit. So I would definitely want to appreciate the culture. So I can find some of the art, some of the music, some of the places that I like over Pinterest, and I can sort of pin that in. And the third is board is to be created by inspired by Matsuyama. So the idea is sampling appropriation in arts with relation to our current times. So find how people sample stuff to create collages, to create album covers, to create whatever. So create these Pinterest boards. You can add 5 images at least in one board, to 10 as well. It's your call. So yeah, I look forward to your Pinterest board, everyone. Alright, so we'll wrap up today's session. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and and I'll see you guys again in our next lecture video. Alright, till then, take care. Bye bye.